Hey guys, it's Tammy Dunnett, your host of the Leadership Communication Expo, giving you access to industry leaders who are sharing their simple, actionable, and step-by-step strategies so that you can fully embrace the leader you are meant to be, master conflict resolution, and create engaging and inclusive teams. Today with me here, I have 𝑻𝒉𝒆, a leadership coach. With over 27 years in coaching and leadership in the Asia-Pacific region, 𝒉𝒆 serves senior executives to lead and thrive at their best in an ever-shifting environment. His key drive is to empower leaders and coaches to live, be brave. 𝒉𝒆 is the founder of Epic and Catalyst Coaching based in Melbourne and is passionate about democratizing coaching. He leads a global ICF accredited school that equips the future generation of coaches. He's also the co-author of 3 books and the author of an upcoming book called Engage: How to Stop Living in Default and Start Living the Life You Desire. Excited to have this conversation with 𝒉𝒆 today because we are talking about get your shit together, from a domineering to an engaged leader. Welcome, 𝒉𝒆.
Thank you, Tammy. Great that you're creating this wonderful space for everyone to just jump on in and be able to learn more about leadership.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that we're talking about this particular topic because I think, when we get into leadership, we're supposed to have our shit together, and there are a lot of ways in which we either don't or we don't know about it. And I think that's part of your journey, was that you didn't actually know that there might be a problem for quite a while.
We're getting straight to that.
Yeah, we're diving right in.
Good. That's good. Here we go.
Yeah, so it's just,
well, you're right. Go ahead.
Let's just dial it back and tell us a little bit about maybe how you started and how this revelation came to be for you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I started off in advertising, and then I quickly moved from advertising to the marketing space with fast-moving consumer goods. When you become a leader or manager, at least, there is no how to become a manager book, right? I'm sure there are a lot of books out there, but there is just no formula for success, if you know what I mean. It's just like when I first became a parent. I've read a couple of books, but nothing prepares you for the moment, right? So it's similar as a manager. You just chug along, you look around, you follow what your predecessors are saying, you pick up who are giving you good vibes and giving you the respect as a person, if you know what I mean. And then along the way, you just pick up yourself. You fall down, of course, pick up yourself again, and then you make sure you don't step on those kind of toes. You watch out for those landmines over there, and maybe you're not supposed to talk to that department over there. So it's a mix of things that you learn along the way. And of course, conflict, as you were mentioning before. There's just so much of all these things that no one prepared you for, especially in university. I'm sorry, but uni is just a lovely extension from your college days. And when you jump straight into that work zone, it is like war zone. so that's when you try to get your together. And sometimes you succeed, and other times you learn, and you learn fast, right? So as I was getting along in that years, I started to realize that, hey, this worked for me. It also works to put your foot down. So once, twice, 3 times you get your way, and you thought, hey, I'm going to start putting my foot down. People are starting to respect me. So I think that's working. That's working. So that's going to be part of me. And that's going to be part of me. And that's going to be part of me. And very soon I've created this wonderful shell, exterior shell. It's like a protection arm, right? You wear it. It's your little shield. You wear it when you go to work, and you start believing that it is a part of you. And I think that's when the danger starts to happen.
Yeah, I think that's really important. The fact that there isn't really, like a training ground. You know, some people just jump in and they think they've got it, as you mentioned, from university and
Yeah,
schooling. It's really just the foundation you learn in the
yeah,
academia. It's the on the
yeah,
job learning that becomes so
absolutely.
critical as to whether you're actually seen as a good leader or not. But you had this perception that because things were working and they were meeting the objective, that things were actually good behaviors.
And I think one of the things that sort of supported that was my performance appraisal, right?
Mm.
And we're supposed to think that in the performance appraisal, people will tell you about certain things that they want you to improve if you're not. And I guess they did in some ways, but they didn't really tell me the full story, right? So they just said, Mel, you're performing so well, just keep it up, do this, and just be you. And that was like confirmation, right? It's like just ringing in my ear saying, go on like that, go on like that, go on like that. And yes, slowly but surely, it just became thicker. The armor became thicker. I became, well, in Asia, we call it thick skin, right? I didn't bother what people talked about me any longer. I used to. And then I started to become a little bit, I would say, overtly confident, right? It's like I could be starting to walk on water, right? And I talked to headhunters and, recruitment agencies and all the like. And everyone just around me continuously to say, Mel, you're a star. Mel, you're a star. And hey, I was a star.
Yeah, you were in the definition of what they were looking for output and outcomes.
Oh yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
right. And I think that happens a lot in organizations is we see the outcome that they produce and we overlook some things that maybe aren't quite working out.
Yeah, very much, very much.
Yeah, you kind of had one of those aha moments. And you mentioned the performance reviews, and we often talk about the how appropriate. We talk about the shit sandwich, some good stuff, a
Yeah,
little bit of
yeah,
bad, followed up with some
yeah,
good stuff. And so they probably
yeah,
did throw a little bit in there, but because the good stuff was so encompassing,
absolutely.
that's kind of what the armor became like. Oh, well, I'm so good. This is small potatoes.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that I even got this mid-year award. Right, it's like they called it the War for Talent, right? And then I check in with my other peers, right? Anyone got this? And wasn't, right? They didn't get it. I was the only one. So it started to, reconfirm all those things that I thought was me. And it just kept on going. It kept on building this little monster. And I started believing more and more in myself. And again, I don't think that's anything wrong with that. The belief in self, I think it's very important to succeed in anything in life. But the overtly, it's like it's a little bit off tangent, and you start believing this and the ship goes off sailing in a different direction where it's supposed to be heading. And you're finding that, hey, am I still reaching a destination? The answer is yes. I still got the promotions. I still got the bonuses. I still got all of that kind of confirmed my performance. And yet my performance as a human being in the workplace, no one told me about that. Right.
Yeah.
So there you
Let's
go.
talk about that moment when you kind of had that real awakening or awareness as to that things weren't working on that personal level.
And I'll tell you, this happened to me when I was on the top of my career, right? And there was this one day that I was called into the boss's room. I still remember. And they kind of said that, hey, we got this wonderful offer for you to kind of take on this other role. Without explaining much about it, I thought I was being sidelined, and I really felt tremendously like I was cheated, right? It was just a huge step on my values, right? Which is integrity and trust and everything. And, for the first time in my life, I left the organization that I was in, and that was thriving in, because of that statement, because I guess my self-esteem, my ego was built to such a level that I could not fail. And this seemed like a threat to that status, that whatever I thought of myself. And I said, you know what? If they don't appreciate me, let me get out of this. Of course, I was hurt. And of course, probably they didn't do it in the right way. But I think it all meant that they wanted to give me a chance. They wanted to give me a different opportunity, maybe that I didn't have too many people reporting to me. Because I think I was probably being a very tough cookie of a boss to a lot of people. And again, I did not receive any feedback from that, or engagement scores that was different. Mm-hmm. Perhaps they were just fearful of that. But then it had to be, something that was, done from the level above. So now at that point, I did not know about this in the background of things until years later. I met up with the HR person years later. She was attending one of my programs. Now I was already a coach, right? And I was like, I'm so thankful you're here. This was tea break, by the way. We were talking, and then she pulled me to the side. It's like, oh my gosh, Mel, you have made such tremendous, steps into being a coach, and I'm so admiring of your achievements. I'm like, yeah, again that humble person, it's like, oh yeah. But again, and then she said this was like the mic drop moment, right? She said, thank goodness you're not like you were before. And this caught me off guard. I was like, what do you mean?
Curious, right?
Yeah. hey, all that lovely, fluffing of my feathers, and then now just saying, drop this dead ball and saying, thank goodness you're much nicer now. I'm like, okay, tell me about it. He said, nah, it's okay. We've got a short tea break, and I'm like, we've got to catch up for coffee, okay? And you got to tell me your side of the story. And I was just so curious, really. Now, I met up with her over a long coffee, and she started telling me those stories, right? It's like those war stories, right? Not just from her perspective, but from others, right? Mm-hmm. There were other people that were affected from these war stories. I was like, man, how come I never knew about it? Mm-hmm. That was the thing I often say, right? It's no one told me, or perhaps no one was brave enough to give me that feedback. When she gave me all that, I really just thank her from the depth of my heart. But you know what? I guess it was a little too late, because I have done all that damage along the years, and I did not know I was doing all of that. So, yeah, a little scary moment
in that moment. Yeah, that's a significant moment. It's an identity crisis almost, because you're looking back at what you thought was a really great record, and now you're realizing there were some tarnishes and blemishes on this. What were some of your initial thoughts? Do you remember?
Yeah, I kind of agreed with it. I've been a coach for X number of years by then, and I realized that I have changed. One of the first feedback was my spouse, right? And then my children. And they were joking about the times I was that way as a father. Now, obviously, again, I never went to grad school being a parent, but it's one of those things you learn along the way. And I guess that was a confirmation of the changes I have made as a person from that very tough, strict, and that was the kids' perspective, not so friendly. I was having this really dictatorial face, and I kind of knew I had that face, but I kind of, in my own perspective, it was kind of like a not so bad face, if you know what I mean, because you don't often have the mirror right in front of you and saying, oh, okay, that's how I look, eh? Um, and that's it, right? It was like a confirmation of those changes, right? Of what I've been doing. And when I heard that, I guess in the formal setting, in the workplace, which was a lot of my life just being there, I started to think, oh my gosh, how long has this carried on? I think that was the first thing that came to my mind. How long did this have to carry on before someone was brave enough to kind of tell me something? And I
Two
think,
thoughts.
yeah,
Sorry, two
go
thoughts
ahead.
come to mind there. And sorry, I thought you were finished there. One is, did you feel a sense of betrayal in that moment that they didn't try to encourage you earlier to change? And then the
Well,
second is, would the
yeah.
old Mel have listened? That's the other question.
I'll answer the second one first. I guess I would have really. I would have. You know, one of the things I realized is when a very strong leader meets with another strong leader, there is a meeting point there, which means there is mutual respect. And so I knew through my career that there were only certain people that I truly respected. So yes, if I got that feedback from those people, those peers of mine that I respected, I would have been open, really. I guess thinking about it on hindsight, I think they must have tried to give me the feedback, but it was not too directive in that sense. It was not too, fronting, right? They didn't really tell me as it is, right? They just kind of mention it, if I remember. But I'm like, yeah, that guy deserved it anyway, Yeah. So I think that's the thing. So not much of a betrayal, but I guess it would be, I wish I would have known earlier. Yeah.
So with that, because you were modeling after others that you had seen ahead of you,
Yeah.
kind of, forging the path, you're like, okay, well, they're doing this and it works, so I'm going to try that. What did you ever come to a point where there was a leader who modeled the way you wanted to be and how people could engage with you in a kinder way?
Yeah, definitely. But that only happened after the fact. So when I left that job and I was out on the cold, and I didn't want to, for the first time, I didn't want to reach out to the recruitment agencies and my friends, in the market. Now, of course, they heard about it, but I didn't actively do anything about it. So I sat back for about 3 months, and it was great because I had a payout. I sat back, I relaxed, and reflected a lot of things. Tried to reflect on my performance, and I think I didn't feel like I did anything wrong at that point of time. And then I got a call from this sort of a acquaintance that I met a long time ago, right? And he called me and said, "Hey, you free?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty free." And he called me up for lunch, and I went for lunch with him. And obviously, I knew in the back of my mind that he was a group CEO of this particular company, right? And I'm like, "Oh, it's all right. We're just having a yarn, we're just catching up as friends and just having lunch." Little did I know that that day would change my life, when he actually, after lunch, very clearly, he just laid it down. He said, "Mel, I heard about what happened to you. I want to hear your side of the story." So I told my side of the story, and then he said, "It met what I heard, because I have a nephew who works in your company that you just left." I'm like, wow. Okay, small world. So straight away, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't do anything wrong with that. But he said, "Because of that, I want to offer you this position." And it was general manager reporting to him, right? He had about, 3 general managers reporting him, and this particular business was empty. So I stepped in. So over the next 9 months, yeah, you're absolutely right. I for the first time, I had someone that I could truly look up to, truly model from, because he was truly walking the talk. He did not tell me about what I needed to do, but he showed me the way. So I just watched him. I watched him every day. He was one of those bosses that would invite me even to his room. And get this, he would say, Mel, have a seat. And I was just sitting, and I thought that he wanted to have an update meeting, right? But he said, no, Mel, it's after 5:30 now, so we're just going to talk. I'm like, okay, that's new. And then he says this, Mel, you've been here like for 3 months now. I would love to hear some feedback on your perspective about my leadership. My goodness, I've never had a chance, besides putting the feedback on some electronic form, right? The engagement form or the feedback form that you want to say something anonymously to your boss or someone else. This is right face to face, sitting there, and he asking me. He's not giving me the feedback. He's asking me for feedback. So to me, that role model just broke down all the misconceptions I had with, my gosh, as a leader, you don't always need to be getting your shit together. Getting your shit together also means being vulnerable, being approachable, being able to talk about tough things openly and with trust, right? Because, hey, I only worked for him for 3 months and he's already asking me, right, about what I think about him. And that just blew me away. That even gave me more respect and more, I just wanted to glean from him even more. So yeah.
I love that. That sounds like almost a revolutionary moment for you in your development as a leader, and also a moment of permission for you to lead differently at the same time.
Yeah, it was a silent one. And again, as I said, he didn't tell me what to do. And he could have easily said, Mel, do this, do this, do this. It was his company, by the way, right? But he didn't. He gave me the space. He didn't say, look at me, but he just modeled the talk. One of the things that really stood out for me, besides a lot of other things, I'll tell you two. Okay, I'll tell you two. The first one is how he treated his customers. And that will always be in my mind. There was one day he brought me in, and again, I thought, right, bring me into the office means I'm either going to get some feedback or some shelling or whatever, because I'm used to that, right? Tell me, I'm tough, right? and he says, Mel, I've got an issue about your P&L. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. He says, Mel, you've got this fund, and it's called entertainment fund, which means take out your clients and give them a great time. And of course, build rapport with them, right? At the end of the day, right? I'm like, hey, boss, I am only saving you money by choosing the right people to go out with and not just splurging that sum of money. And then he said, stop. He said, that money has been set aside for that. I want you to use it. Okay? That's all. Take care of our clients and they will take care of us. So that's it. So that was the first thing I was like, oh my gosh, this is again another revelation. It's like customer service is king, right? Customer is always first. And I always had that in my mind. And then the second thing is that he said, Mel, one day I will get you a coach. That was the start of that thing ringing in my ear, right? Coach. I'm like, what is a coach? I don't need a coach. I am great as a leader, right? What are you talking about, right? You only get a coach when you're like struggling, when you can't see yourself on hindsight, I kind of thought, yeah, you're right. We don't often see the things on the side of us, the blind spots. And I never knew that. And he said, well, I have a coach, and it has helped me tremendously. And it has helped me see the areas that I need to improve, and this and that. I'm like, again, it's like role modeling it. He's having a coach. He's having those open discussions about him, about how he can change as a leader. I'm like, darn, he's already such a good leader and he wants to get better. I was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with him? I still thought, what's wrong with him, right? It's like, crazy guy. But then that kind of really not just hit here. He didn't hit home here. It hit home here. It's like, man, this is the first time I'm seeing such a leader. I've never, ever in my career seen a leader this accepting to feedback, even from someone external like a coach. And that, I guess, was the seed that he planted in me about coaching. And a couple of years later, that's when I started that coaching journey for myself.
It feels like a very nurturing moment. And I don't mean like motherly smother, but I mean, it feels like a very nurturing moment in the sense that the scene you painted earlier was like, you figured it out on your own. It was like, be led or lead. You got to figure it out. And there's really no guidance. It's just about outcomes, probably money and sales and things like that. Whereas this was more of a balanced approach. Like, we want our sales and our customers, but we want you to be better as a person too. And it feels very nurturing.
It certainly did. And again, in every of my role, I've never felt that, really. I mean, I felt some sort of love because they conferred on me those new titles, those extended bonuses and stuff like that. But, on the 𝒉𝒆𝒂𝒅𝒆𝒔𝒉𝒊𝒄𝒂𝒕𝒊𝒐𝒏 the motivational theorist, it says that the hygiene factors are important, but they are just hygiene factors, right? It's the motivational factors like recognition and affirmation, acknowledgement, and all of that, which is actually going to make the cut deeper as a leader, because those stuff are the real motivational points, I guess, keys to unlock the person's fullness, their potential, right? And not just those very hygiene factors that I just take care of my staff's well-being financially or his status with those titles, right? That was great, I guess. And I guess growing up as a leader, I realized that wasn't enough. And at that point, I started to realize that, oh my gosh, I must model this new thing that I'm just learning. And that's when it happened, when I started to change my own leadership style. And I think it was that role that started to change it. And one of the things I implemented was this. Because he had this open door policy, I really didn't actually. I said, basically, let us just do work and let's, get out of here. I don't need to be your good friend. I need to be a great boss, But he encouraged me to start having more dialogues with my people. That's all he said. And I thought, maybe I'll mirror that on what he's doing for me. And so I started, right? I started this 5:30 open door policy, right? I practically left the door open at 5:30 every day. And you would see people start to trickle in. Firstly, very slow trickle, because they were testing the open door, whether when they sat in, I was going to jump on them and say, you did not do this, where's the report, and where's this and all that, which I used to do, because I thought I was a great leader, right? But when I learned this, I start to draw the line and say, hey, you've got to do this for your people. And I started to have this open dialogue. And when they started to come in and they started to pour of themselves to me, I start to realize, oh my gosh, this is the impact. This is the thing that makes people want to come to work, because they know that they're cared for. They know that they listen to. And that was a revelation again. When I did that, when I was able to kind of be there for my people, it made all the difference in my leadership. And I carried that forward, I guess, into the next roles.
Yeah, so let's talk about that next role, coaching. So you've now become a coach yourself to help other leaders embody those characteristics that you saw to be so valuable that you didn't have awareness of before.
Yeah, it really opened my mind, to be frank, on it's like, you know, things that are counterintuitive, and it just doesn't sound like it's going to work, right? It doesn't feel like it's right, but it's not the answers, right? One of the big aha moments was, you know, I was the fastest one to give the answers, right? Because I thought my staff, the people about me, just wanted my wisdom. and yes, I'm sure they did, but I don't know whether I spent time asking them about theirs.
Oh, that's a mic drop moment right there. Yeah.
You know, and it's just one of those things, right? If you are just talking all the time, and you know, I hate that. I hate that of people. You go to some sort of cocktail party or networking function or whatever, and you get on a circle holding your drink, and you've got some person come in late, and then he steals the show, and he's talking everything about his success, and you just feel like, oh shit, what? You know, I just want to exit this little circle and just even drink on my own on the side. That's fine, because it just gets a little boring after a while, right? It's just all about you, eh?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that, right? I thought people loved my stories, and they probably did, but maybe if I took a break sometimes, you know, and listen to what other people's stories were all about, that would make a difference. And so I started to realize the power of questions, right? And the questions weren't anymore, I'm asking you because I want that answer this way, because I used to do it that way too, right? But the questions were more about them, positioning, open-ended, making sure that their stories were being heard. So when I realized that, it really meddled with my head, right? It's like, okay, questions. The power of new insight comes from new questioning, right? So that's when I started to realize that everyone has a perspective. And to be frank, everyone is right. Whatever the situation, right? They are right. They are right to say that they are struggling. They are right to say that they're fearing something at work. They are right to say all of that, because that's their perspective. And my role is no longer to say, there you go. Yeah, you're right. You know, you're down slow, or, you know, you should have done this. You know, my reason for being now is to allow them to come in that new, open, trusting, safe environment for me just to do one thing, which is to hold up a mirror to them. Because when I hold up a mirror, I am missing in the equation, right? When you hold up a mirror to someone, you're only seeing yourself. And that's the biggest role I feel as a coach. You're asking the question behind the mirror. And that's important. That means what? You don't need the limelight. You don't need to share the achievements even. It's all about them. And when I realized that, those were the things that I'm saying, I wish I knew this earlier. I could have gotten my shit better together then. But now I'm just so empowered. I'm so encouraged that every time I get to meet another one of those leaders out there, I say, hey, Mel, this is your opportunity to partner with them, to allow them to experience their perspective of where they're at, not to judge them, not to tell them they're doing wrong, but to allow them this opportunity to look in the mirror and say, what do you like? What do you see? Who do you want to become? What are you looking forward for? And allow them that space to be able to be themselves.
That is so powerful. It feels like a complete 360 from the old now. You know, like it feels like a dissociative experience, actually, like there's a rebirthing here.
Thank you for saying that. I feel that if I never went through that, and I never went through all those years of being who I am, I don't know whether I'll understand and be empathetic about the need for being a driver, autocratic kind of leader.
Yeah.
Because in today's world, it's tough. And it's even tougher right now with the situation, right? And we're expected to turn things around even faster in this VUCA world, right? And when I meet up with leaders, I have a lot more empathy about when they share about themselves, right? And I start realizing that, wow, they're just saying it as it is. And I'm so thankful that they have this opportunity to speak about those things that are challenging them. And I think that's the most beautiful part of coaching, right? It's we get to co-create something. And at the end of the day, they get to stand on their own platform again. They're the new platform that they're building along the way through these conversations, so that they can truly be the leader that they want to be.
That's amazing. I have to ask, what do your kids say about you now?
Well, I don't think it's about the saying, to be frank, Tammy. It's about just the acceptance, right? Today, we can all laugh about my mishaps. I think that's the power of it. When we can bring humor and laugh at how I was so strict as a dad and how I would ground them on some things and all of that. When we can joke about it, I think that's already a big transformation, because I can start laughing about my ways before.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of it, right? When you can laugh in your own predicaments, it means that it's gone past, because you're not sensitive about the fact that people are bringing up things to you again. And like, stop it! I don't want to listen to that anymore. But I'm curious as well. I have this new curiosity. When my friend had the boldness to meet me for coffee, remember that? All I came was curious, and of course apologetic. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And you know what? I felt that release that day. That release happened. And I'm so thankful for this particular person, because that fullness of that release happened when I could get this person to be like a representation on all those people that I may have hurt along the way, and just kind of tell this person, I am truly sorry.
Yeah, they held the mirror up for you that day.
Ooh, wow. That's powerful, Tammy. That's so true.
What I love about what you just shared. So we often talk about intention and impact. And so in my world, when I deal with bullies in the workplace, that's one of my specialties. Intention matters, right? And so, because if their intention is to be a bully, that's a bigger issue, needs a bigger team to resource it. But if their intention, as yours was, to get the job done, to make sure people were employed, all those things, the intention is coming from a good place. But with the awareness, we can then change the impact just by sharing, hey, you got a good heart. You're not landing the way you think you are.
Yeah.
And then we can make a difference. So the intention, I think, is so important.
Whew. That is so true, right? That is so true. And I think that intention is also tied to how much of that pride and need to protect yourself, right? Because it's often us having this part of ourselves, the response or reaction part of us in our brain, right, to just protect ourselves at all costs, right? And if we feel threatened, we would go back into that animalistic reaction that we have. And for me, it was to bite you back, you know, and I'm not going to apologize to bite you because you're threatening me, right? So, but you're right. The intention is so important. And I also feel that even those with that bullying kind of thoughts, you know, I don't think bullies are just, they're just born that way. It's all about the conditioning, right? The things that they have gone through, the things that they have tried to suppress, and it just didn't work as a strategy to suppress it. It needed to be brought out into the light. And similarly, I think awareness, but obviously a different way of bringing that awareness in smaller portions, perhaps. But I think that awareness is still very important for those people even if they started with the wrong intention, but I'm sure there is hope for them too.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of hope, actually. So speaking of hope, let's move on to, you are sharing with our audience some illustrated chapters of your upcoming book, which is amazing. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I am a very visual and kinesthetic kind of person. So I thought, why not get my good friend who's an illustrator to do this on every chapter of my book. So I've got 12 chapters in this book, Engage. And I'm going to give 3 of those chapters away. And it's beautifully illustrated. Now, let me just say this as a closing, because I'm just reminded on that. I hope that's okay. This illustrator was working in the advertising agency that serviced my accounts. He also gave me feedback. And it was the same thing. He was like, oh my gosh, and that's the 2 people in my life that was brave enough to come back after so many years and be able to have this talk with me. And again, I'm so thankful. So yeah, let's come back to the illustrator. Beautiful illustrations done by him. Yeah, there's a little shameless plug for him as well. He's just, artistic in that nature. But this gift is for your audience, anyone listening here in today, and especially for those who kind of feel that is there hope for me to be that kind of leader? Because I kind of feel that I've been this all along, how do I change? And there is hope, look at me, right? I have continuously, because I'm a work in progress. I don't ever say that I have reached that destination of being a better person already. I am still so much of a work in progress. And, if I can do it, anyone can do it, Just be open, listen in on the feedback, of course, listen in on yourself as well. Just allow yourself to explore, be curious about what you can and who you can become, and serve the world. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I think we have weaved the theme of brave throughout the entire conversation, right? Brave enough to accept that job when you weren't really sure. You kind of thought, I've been off work for a long time, and you even know what I've done, but I'm going to be brave enough to take this, brave enough to see a different leadership, to open yourself up for feedback in a new way. But also for those who are brave enough around you to stand in that space with you and say, hey, we need to talk. I think there's a lot of great things that came from bravery in this story.
Thank you.
Thanks for being a part of our expo.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.